Okay, so here we are, Warriors of God, ready to start the 100 Years' War scenario. Almost entirely the same rule set. Two little differences. The English longbows are no longer restricted. If you can go to England and produce longbows, any of your leaders can carry them now. There's no Robin Hood. There are a few... for one thing, the game starts off in a somewhat more stable environment. England and France both have a king, and they both control their primary territory. However, the rest of the territory isn't really connected. England's a solid country and only has one space, but France is a huge territory still, and the French kings just did not have the full mobilized power of France behind them. This is again a scenario, the whole 100 Years' War, covering a period with a lot of turmoil in both countries, as well as this war that's going on between them. And really, the Lion and Winter one covers several wars or conflicts that took place during a period, running from the wars of Stephen and Matilda all the way through and into deep into Plantagenet era. Like we saw, we already had John Lackland on the board. Well, here we're seeing the end of the Plantagenet era, as well as really the end of the current French reign, I think. I'm trying to remember my French kings here. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, we're going into an era at the end of this is 1453. That's a period where, France is really becoming a nation. Now, this is, while we're playing this, is the period where England has become a nation already. So we're going to hit the turmoil that forges France during this. But I think England has a lot more resilience at this point. Anyway, that's not really reflected by anything. We're still facing the same rules for the most part. The only thing that's to change here is something called home court advantage, which I don't know if it's an advantage. When you roll for initiative, if your king, and we start with kings in this game, is in his home country, England or Ile-de-France, you get a +1 to your initiative die roll. If you do not have a king in play, you subtract 1 from your die roll. But the problem is, initiative didn't strike me as an advantage. It struck me as the disadvantage because it meant you can't produce your troops, you don't get the best pick out of the leaders, etc. Certainly in the last scenario that was the case. I'm not sure in this one. English sea dogs. The English player is allowed to move 2 leaders across a sea area, even into a non-friendly controlled area. This doesn't apply on retreats. Not really an issue there, but it's gives them a little bit more aid in crossing the channel in a way that they did not have in the previous scenario, and which can definitely bog them down heavily. Finally, there's rules for Joan of Arc. If she's the French battle commander, the English have to roll a die before each round of battle. If the die roll is equal to the English battle commander's bravery rating, battle is conducted normally. If the die roll is greater, the English player doesn't get to roll any dice. Well, I think it should be equal or less, because otherwise everybody's the same. But yeah, it's a situation where Joan of Arc can just negate a more powerful English army or whatever from getting to swing at all on an attack. And as they put it here, this will likely mean that the oh, no, it's more than that. If the die roll is less, Joan of Arc is indisposed for a while, and the French player doesn't get to roll dice. So she's a risky leader. Chances are the English will not have very high bravery ratings. I mean, I don't see a Robin Hood in this game. Although this one, Edward of Woodstock, is pretty potent. But that's fairly early before her. We'll see. We may see some decent ones out there. It's certainly an advantage overall to the French, even with a good, even with a fairly good bravery rating. But once you get up to a 4, it's not. But I don't think we'll see anyone like that. Anyway, let's get into this and we'll see if it plays significantly differently. My memory is the game is the same, the feel is the same. This one may have a little bit of a sturdier start, is all. Okay, so starting out the initiative, I rolled for who gets the choice. The English got the choice. They took Jacob of Ardeverde, the neutrals. Charles de Bois is the French option over in Brittany. Then I rolled for the initiative itself. Got the maximum possible roll, which meant 9 initiatives for the English. They spent their first one crossing over into Normandy. With this many initiatives, we're going to see a lot of movement. It's hard to tell what France is going to do to compete with this, or potentially a lot of movement. What does France want to do? They don't want to let the English challenge them in Ile-de-France. And maybe John Chandos, who's very good to attack over in Brittany, say. They don't want to see that kind of spreading out of power. So I think the French need to challenge the English directly here in Normandy. Even though they're outnumbered, Philip is not as good a leader. Of course, that opens things up to Joan of Arc. A little dangerous, but probably a danger worth taking. This is clearly not a battle the French expect to win, but they are trying to protect their country here. Now, with all these initiatives left, it's hard to tell that anything is going to happen because these guys are all pinned, and we got 2 leaders in kind of good places. Ardevelde can disrupt the Ile-de-France, though, and that may just happen. That may be their best move. But the threat of that happening was enough to pull Charles de Bois down into Ile-de-France to defend against it. The English pass their next turn, and now the French have to make a choice. Well, they have to stay in Ile-de-France, and now Ardevelde gets to go up to Flanders on the last move. Now we handle the battle. Well, there's only one. There's no chance of a siege here. Let's just fight this out. I know, I don't like... Strength points are pretty even. Commanders, both 5s. The English are going to get 5 dice. +1 for the archer inherent in Edward III. The French are going to get 5 dice. The English are at +1 on all their dice, though, because of the higher bravery rate. The roll, England gets 1 hit on the French. Now the question here is, do the French want to keep fighting at bad odds? They're down to 3, 4, 5. It strikes me that they actually probably want to get out of there. They're already at a disadvantage, though, but why make it worse? So I think retreating is the best move at this point. They prevented an attack on Ile-de-France. That's the main thing they wanted to do, to delay this a little bit. So the English are going to get a shot at +2 now. And they get 2, 3, 4 hits on the French, which is quite extreme. That wipes out the French infantry. And takes a shot at Louis de Dampierre. De Dampierre. See if he survives this. He gets a 2. He's dead. Wasn't a good turn for the French, there's no question. Was there a better option? I don't know. Sticking and fighting may have lost them their king, which would have been worse. Now we're going to go to producing troops, etc. I'll come back after that. Leader deaths resulted in both of the neutrals, Joan of Arc and Charles de Bois, to die. This was not a big deal for de Bois. Well, I mean, personally it probably was. But for the Artevelde situation, that left Flanders open. France has the first option to place a leader. However, France picked David II in Scotland to add that threat of a Scottish resistance there. By the way, the English built a knight and an archer. The French built a knight. Just for some specialists, no guns were added here. Okay, so now what happens here? Well, the English get the second pick of the neutral. They take Jean de Montfort and move him into Flanders. Right away, that's now I own Flanders. Well, not quite, because the French got to place their leaders. They placed their Jean II to into Ile-de-France. He gets some bonus troops that way, and will be able to help, I don't know, fight in some sense or another. He's a better leader than Philippe overall, so that'll be kind of cool for him. But they play Jean, what is this, Limburg from Luxembourg, who would normally start there, but instead of that, they're placing him in Flanders to take that away from the English. More importantly, he gets to associate the troops first. And what can he grab? Well, he can grab the 4 that are here. Now this is what's kind of weird. I'm not sure if he can take the mercenaries or not. If he started with them, he could. But I think actually recruiting mercenaries, you have to do it. You have to pick them up. You can only do it during the specific phase. You can't start a new leader in Flanders and grab the mercenaries from the Netherlands. You could start in the Netherlands and grab them if they're still there. Okay, so let's appropriate the troops. Jean's pretty good. I'm going to give him this, but I want to make sure Philip has troops of his own, just in case I do want to split them up for some reason, which is quite possible, actually. Okay, and now over on the English side, what did we see? Well, Edward of Woodstock, instead of starting down in Aquitaine, which is a valuable area, and it's a painful choice not to say, I'll just take that. He's starting in England because he gets all these troops. Those troops would have been wasted otherwise. Over here in Normandy, nobody gets to grow anything, but Henry of Grosmont got a whole unit. Was this a worthwhile move for 3 units to reinforce? You know, see, part of the decision was because David's up there. I have nothing to defend against. So I'm going to hold this because England's too important. All right, well, that's about the end of the turn. Let's do a quick look at the victory points. Exciting things that happened. Well, Louis Dampierre died. He's a 1-star leader. He'll go over. In the 6th slot, they're always 6 points ahead, their maximum lifespan, but that gives the English 1 point. Elsewhere, what's going on? Well, the English have 2 3-point areas, the French have 1. The English get 2 more points, and it looks like the English are off to a rocking start to begin the game. That's it for this turn. There was something I wanted to mention. Yeah. Alright, well, I think we're going to see whether or not this was a mistake to move Edward of Woodstock into England. He's got better troops here. He can defend against David, maybe offend against David as the case may be, but the problem is he's giving a pass on a much stronger area. Losing England would be bad though. One other thing we're going to see, the French are going to have that home field advantage, which means they get a +1 on their initiative roll. That's not a great thing, I think. Like I've said before, having the initiative roll in your favor, it lets you do that first strike. So the French could slide in here, but there'd still be a free English unit that could go in and take Ile-de-France anyway. So there's no big bonus there. I don't see what else they can use it for. On the other hand, if the English go second, they're going to get their pick of the leaders, their pick of the troops. All kind of advantages come to having lost the initiative. Weird situation. All right, I'm going to load this one up, and then we'll move to turn 2,